All right, well, it looks like it's 7 o'clock Eastern Time, and so we will get started. Welcome to this webinar with Catholic University's Bush School of Business and Economics. Also to promote the Good Business or the Good Profit Conference that will be taking place on October 4th through the 6th, 2017. Very excited to have a discussion tonight on entrepreneurship, on good profit, on philanthropy, and virtuous business practices. And my name is Anna Mitchell. I'm the host and producer of the Sunrise Morning Show, which you can hear Monday through Friday on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. And I am very much looking forward to talking to our two panelists. Now, you can't see her, but Magatte Wade is passionate about entrepreneurship and creating high-end retail brands based on diverse African traditions that change the perception of Africa. She was born in Senegal, educated in France, and launched her entrepreneurial career in San Francisco. Magatte is the founder and CEO of Tiossan, which is a high-end skincare products line based on indigenous Senegalese recipes and ingredients. She was named a young global leader by the Davos Global Economic Forum, as well as one of the 20 youngest power women in Africa by Forbes in 2011. And among other board positions, she serves on the advisory board of the Whole Planet Foundation, which is the private foundation of Whole Foods Markets. Magatte, thank you so much for being here. Where are you joining us from today?
Thanks for having me, Anna. I'm joining you from Senegal, the west coast of Africa. It's 11 p.m. right now.
Yeah, I was going to ask what time it was. Thank you for staying up late to be with us tonight.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And just so participants know, the connection, the internet connection out there is a little sketchy, so that's why she's joining us just with audio. But looking forward to your contributions tonight, Magatte. Our other panelist, whom you can see right here next to me, is Frank Hanna. He's CEO of Hanna Capital in Atlanta, Georgia, invests as a merchant banker in technology and financial services, and has started and sold a number of businesses over the last 25 years. Prior to going into the investment business, he was a corporate attorney and is featured on the PBS documentary, The Call of the Entrepreneur. He currently serves on the boards of numerous nonprofit organizations, both within the Catholic Church and in the secular world. He's, interestingly, the founder of the Solidarity Association. Of most significance, the Solidarity Association serves as a trustee of the Mater Verbi Hanna Papyrus Trust, which safeguards in the Vatican Apostolic Library the oldest copy of the Gospel of Luke in the world. So interesting. I'm going to ask you about that tonight, Frank. Thanks so much for being here.
It's my pleasure, Anna. Thanks for having me with you, and I'm looking forward to our time together.
Absolutely. Magatte, we'll start with you. Can you just tell us a little bit more about the business that you're in currently?
Yes, I can, sure. So basically the business you talked about, Tiossan, is a company that I started a few years ago to basically share with the rest of the world the very best of my culture when it comes to caring for one's body. I think in the West just now people are starting to realize, and I'm still running into people who actually don't know, but the skin is the largest organ of the body, and as such absorbs, north of 65% of anything you put on it within 27 seconds. And I come from a place where we are taught that from birth, literally. So we have always been taking care of our bodies in such a way, and it was just compelling for me to share that with the rest of the world when, most of the time they don't even think that Africans actually do take time to care for themselves. So that's number one. But most importantly, right now, I am here setting up manufacturing for my next company, which that one, though, will be tackling the issue around racial discrimination that I'm seeing in America. So I will follow the same path of still, giving people really good products to take care of themselves in the deepest way of it. But at the same time, so here the products will be made in Africa because I always want to give great jobs that move up the value chain, people here. But the the work of a brand in America will be to tackle this issue of racial discrimination, which has been really daunting as you know, and it's an understatement for me. This past July has been really, really hard personally for me. After the 3 videos of black men being shot by the police, I had to really relook at my life and what I was doing. And because I do believe in the power of business to change, to tackle social issues, especially in the power of brands, to change our culture, I set onto that journey. We can talk about it some more later. I don't want to hijack the call on this, but that's what I'm doing right now.
Well, that sounds fascinating. Now, Frank, tell us more about your business.
Well, I'm an investor. I'm constantly seeking for ways to invest in people and in ideas that can bring value to others. At its very root, that's what a venture capitalist is supposed to be. The word venture, I like the fact that it's also in the word adventure. This is supposed to be an adventure. God gives us all certain abilities and talents and resources, and the question is, for each of us, wherever we happen to find ourselves, how can we always have our antenna out for the opportunities that He puts in front of us? As much of our Catholic social teaching tells us, the idea is to use what we have, the blessings we have, to further the common good. Now, I know that's not talked about a lot on Wall Street and in business, but it is interesting the chances that we have to look at business opportunities and the people who are propelling those business opportunities and find a way to bring additional value to customers, to the world. So that's what gets me excited about the kind of investing that I do.
Very cool. So what made you decide to get into the business world in the first place?
I've always had a desire to, if you will, and this sounds idealistic, but this is how I felt when I was in college, to make the world a better place. I was particularly interested in education, and I've stayed involved in education for the last 35 years. But what I found as soon as I started diving into it and researching it was it might help have some resources available to you if you want to bring about some change. So I actually went into the business world thinking I would like to make some money so that I can then apply it to the things I have passion for. But once I got into that business world, I realized, the way you're going to create some wealth and make some money is by seeking to find ways to solve problems for other people. And that's a lot of times what a business opportunity is. How do you go to others and make their life better? Because if you can do that, there's a chance that they will part with their hard-earned dollars and give you those dollars in return for the value that you've given to them. I practiced law for a couple of years. I didn't find that to be my calling, so I went into business. Again, sort of seeking a way to make some money, to get some resources so that I could sort of start applying them to this field of education that I'm experiencing.
Wow. Before, Magatte, I want to get this answer from you as well, but I forgot to mention to the participants, if you have questions that crop up during the evening that you would like asked of Frank or Magatte, I will be monitoring the questions section. You can find it on your little GoToWebinar dashboard screen. And be sure to just type out your questions. I'll get to as many of them as I can throughout the evening. Of course, we're going to try to end by about 8 o'clock or so, just to be conscious of everyone's times, especially Magatte, who's going to be up until midnight in Senegal. Magatte, why did you decide to get into the business world?
Well, in my case, I must say it was not an intentional process. What happened, I think, is early on in my life, as soon as I finished business school in France, I decided to move to the United States for various reasons. Arrived in the United States, was doing pretty well for myself. We're talking about the late 1990s, early 2000s. And doing really well for myself, but really having a crisis of identity in terms of the wealth and the all the opportunities that I was the beneficiary salary off. And yes, I worked really hard for it, but still, living this life of goodness and comparing it to the lives of the people who stayed back home, and most importantly, every single day almost hearing stories of people. Some of these people were close to me, friends of friends of friends, or family members or friends of family members. We're talking about young people, very adventurous young people, very entrepreneurial young people. As we know, those are the ones who leave a place to go settle somewhere else to make a better life, right? So, but stories of such young people every single day perishing at sea, right? Getting themselves into little fishermen's boats, trying to cross the ocean, trying to make it to Europe to find a job, because where they came from, there was not enough jobs. So for me, I had this huge, reminder every day of a job to be done. I didn't quite then know what to do, but it was one of my big issues. And so on one hand, I have my people dying on a regular basis. Just yesterday, we heard about a boat that tipped off. Babies died and children. It's just all the time. And then on the other hand, I also have my culture dying, because people who come from countries that I come from, we feel that we're not good enough. I won't go into the historic of why that's the case, but it is a reality today that, low self-esteem and not feeling that our culture is good enough. And so we tend to want to forget about it. And, to the profit of the Western cultures. Don't take me wrong. Nothing wrong with Western cultures. I love the West. I consider myself a fruit of the West, and as well as, a fruit of Senegalese culture as well. But that's the point. I thrive to live in a world that's very diverse in terms of culture. So on one end, I have my culture dying. On the other end, I have my people dying. And then eventually, it dawned on me that one of the best ways to answer those two problems was going to be through, in my case, the creation of consumer brands that would have embedded in their DNA the very best of my culture, and as companies and as products like that would thrive, they would help me expand my culture and get it, to the rest of the world in a place where it will not only survive, but also, like I said, expand. So that would take care of the culture part. And at the same time, as brands and products like that would, make it to the way to the rest of the world, then it also allows me to create these jobs, very badly needed jobs back home, so that people can have a choice to stay home and raise their families in dignity, if they choose to do so. So I think for me, that's really how it all got started. And eventually, it got started as an impulse, as an intuition. And then as I started looking into why my country was poor and why countries like mine were overwhelmingly living in poverty, it became, I had to look at why is it that, what is poverty? The fact that people are poor because they have no jobs because they have no source of income. Income for most of us, a source of income for most of us is a job. Where do jobs come from? Entrepreneurs, right? It just became that simple. And then if indeed jobs come from entrepreneurs, then how come when you look at the Doing Business Index ranking of the World Bank, which looks at how easy or hard it is to start and run a business in any country in the world, you systematically find the poorest countries at the bottom of the list, including mine. And that the fact that very few people make that link, and very few people understand the relationship. It was mind-blowing to me that very few people understand the relationship between jobs, aka entrepreneurship, and poverty, and all of its ramifications. And so for me, business at its most pure, raw form is one of the most viable ways of social good. That's simple, right? I mean, forget even just trying to be a good business person, an ethical one, and I am an ethical business person, but business in the first place, just being able to provide someone with a job, a good, decent job, it goes such a long way. And I think we sincerely tend to forget about that in rich countries. We lose track of that. And so for me, I got into business because business is a matter of life. Business and the jobs that they create is a matter of life or death, literally, and also is a matter of health. It's a matter of peace or war. I know it sounds big, but it is so real in my case.
That's incredible to think about that coming from a Western worldview like I do, and not have that same perspective that you do. You know, when you talk about your business success, I mean, obviously you've been very successful in the business world, but how much success have you seen on helping others to get ahead in life through this mission of yours to supply jobs to people who need them?
Well, I think that in my case, I always understood that me alone doing what I do would be only as good as whatever it is, right? That at the end of the day, the solution would be in the numbers, in a critical mass of us believing that it's possible. So when I started my first company, my beverage company, it was amazing how very few Africans believed that it could be done. Very few. I would meet some of my counterparts from Ivy League schools in America, Africans from the diaspora who went to Harvard and other places, and they literally, at first, were very skeptical about how far this whole thing would go. So, but in any case, we made our point, and a few years later, we had so many Africans now starting businesses, starting consumer brands, and there is this. It's not me alone. I mean, there was a little cohort of us who really started to believe that we could win on other terms. And so, how do I do? I feel like by just being there, by just trying, others are looking and finally seeing people like them, getting to certain places, which makes them feel that yes, if she could do it, so can I. And the truth is, they will not only do the same, but even better. So that's one thing. Just others being able to look and being inspired to go ahead and jump in. That was one way. Another way is here, even like right here, literally, I'm in the smack dab of it. I've been here for 5 weeks, and just being able to hire people that the rest of the world has just given up on because they don't have a GED degree or anything like that. And to be able to hire people like that in our lab here, because we're making skincare products, and it's a lab, and it's our chemist, for example, is a chemist, French chemist who used to work for L'Oreal and Chanel and stuff like that. That's the type of operation we're running here. So this is not like small, like tiny little lab doing things in a weird way somewhere in the middle of nowhere. We are really up to standard. But yeah, the people we try to hire are people that society has decided that because they don't happen to have the right degree, that they could not be here. And you should see in their eyes, the eyes of these women that we have here working with us, it's amazing. I see them, they're very, very conscientious. They're very good at what they do. And so for them, even, what are we doing by being here? We are bringing them world-class standards, and for them to really understand what it is so that they can also step up to the plate and make themselves to become better workers also. So tomorrow they can be hireable anywhere. So it's just this idea of, I think, by just standing up and doing something and trying to do it the right way, others hopefully look up and them to jump in. I have this belief that, the best you can do is sometimes it's just to show up. And by just showing up, others get inspired, and hopefully they will go and they will do better, bigger, which I know it's just going to happen, and I'm seeing it. So for me, it's more what it is all about. It's about being able to give strength to some who may not think that they may have it otherwise, inspire some who may never believe in it otherwise, just to get up and go and join the party. And I'm seeing it more and more. So for me, that's the biggest success possible.
Frank, I want to go back to you now. Do you consider business to be a vocation of sorts?
Absolutely. And, we heard such really moving testimony, and I deliberately use that word testimony from Magatte over the past couple of minutes. What she was referencing was being a witness to the virtue of business and to the good that it can bring about. I think we all have a call from God, from our Creator, and certainly business needs to take place. So those in business should view it as a call. Now, not everybody is called to that. Some are called to be doctors, some are called to be teachers, and there's all sorts of vocations. But for those who are in business, they absolutely should see it as a call. And to expand a little bit on what Magatte was saying, the fact is, what she described in her corner of the world is happening in real time. But it's also what has lifted billions of people out of poverty over the last 3 decades. We have, if you just take 2 countries, India and China alone, over 1 billion people have been lifted out of day-to-day poverty where they were barely living into the middle class. And that's never happened in the history of the world. And it came about not because governments created jobs. It came about because governments were willing for entrepreneurs to create jobs. For 50 years, the communists in China insisted that they knew how to organize industry, and if you just gave them enough power, they would bring about prosperity. And finally, sometime in the late 90s, I don't remember exactly when, but Deng Xiaoping realized, you know what? We've got to take a chance. We have to take a chance on the Magattes of the world, who we wish we could control them, but we can't, because that kind of personality is very difficult to control. And we in government, we like to control, but we're going to have to take a chance because we can't create jobs. We need the entrepreneurial fervor and energy and impulse of the people out there who do create the jobs. And that's what changed China over the last 25 years. And by the way, this is not to suggest that everybody in business sees it as a vocation or that everybody in business is acting in a virtuous manner. But I do believe that entrepreneurial spirit is absolutely necessary to lift people out of poverty, is absolutely necessary to bring society along, and hopefully in the midst of that, those who are engaged in it for the sake of their own souls and the souls of those around them will see it as a vocation, because that's actually what elevates themselves as they're serving others.
Absolutely. I mean, because some people might consider business to be just, this cutthroat, corrupt kind of industry, right? And that to be virtuous just makes it easier for other people to step on you on their way to the top. Has that been your experience, Frank?
I think it's true for all fields. It's sort of interesting that in the business gets viewed as this place where people are acting either in an evil way or they're acting in a way where they get stepped on. But you know what? It's true in sports. I mean, you can either be a cheater or you can decide you're going to be a good sport, and sometimes you get taken advantage of. I mean, let's not pretend that every time you act in a virtuous manner wherever you are, that somehow that pays off. And I wish that were the case. It doesn't always pay off. But the fact is, if you want to live with yourself, you've got to get beyond just serving your own immediate greedy needs. And so the people I find in business who are happiest, that may sound like an odd word to use in the context of business, but the people who are happiest, who are most fulfilled, are the ones who try to act with virtue. I wish I could tell you everyone does, but you know what? I don't find everybody in journalism acting with virtue. I've run across doctors who don't act with virtue. I've run across teachers who don't work hard for their kids and don't act with virtue. I've seen athletes who don't act with virtue. I see people in Hollywood who don't act with virtue. So I think every field out there are populated by people who feel like they're there not just to serve themselves, but to also serve others. And those are those who seek virtue. And there are others who pursue a selfish route. Certainly in business, it is the constant battle for that. But no, of course it's not completely cutthroat any more than any other field is. It's just kind of easy to characterize it because the measuring stick in so many businesses happens to be dollars.
Yeah. So you have that kind of that aspect when you're looking at it just through the lens of money. But certainly you two are both people that aren't just looking at the money aspect of it. Magatte, how have you seen success in running a virtue-based business, a business that looks to raise others out of poverty in addition to your own financial success?
Anna, can you repeat? I didn't hear you well on that last sentence. I heard everything, but the last sentence, could you just repeat for quick, please?
Sure. I was just wondering how you have seen success in running a virtue-based business that is not just focused on your own personal profits, but focused on others as well.
Yeah. I mean, I will go back to what Frank was saying earlier. And by the way, I think it's really important to, and before I answer that, just to go back to the question you asked him, I think it's really important, to remind people that, people tend to think of business in a weird way as if we're weird animals, but we're not. I think I also wanted to add to that piece before I go back to your question.
Sure.
I wanted to add the fact that it's crony business. It's crony business that has really muddied the waters for most people. I think oftentimes when people think of bad when it comes to business, they're oftentimes thinking without being sophisticated enough to or articulate enough to make the distinction. They're really confusing crony business with business, right? So, and crony business we see everywhere, and all of us better be aligned, united against crony business. But I think it's very important that even us business people, as we speak, that we always try and make the distinction and remind of people that there is crony business, and then there is I would like to call it crony dealings, because I don't even think crony dealings and business itself. So it's just I always want to remind people of that difference and making sure that they stop for a second and think about what is it that they really have a problem with. And then to go back to your question of how have I seen success in running virtue-based businesses, I think for me, it's being about, how do I say that? It has just been about, I don't know. And now I'm going to sound like, this, but I can tell you, nothing makes me happier. And I think Frank used the word, nothing makes me happier than doing what it is that I do now. It's hard. It is super challenging. Sometimes I wonder even to myself, why am I even here? Why do I even bother? But you know what? I could not see myself being anywhere else. And the fact that I'm feeding my soul literally every single day, it's that right there is real success for me. And also, the fact that I believe that one of the best ways in my mind to serve God is to basically serve its very creation, man. And I feel like that's what business allows me to do. I feel like I go and I serve every single day.
Frank, we're getting some notes here from a participant named Perry, who is saying, how are you getting people out of poverty? There's such a gap between 1% and 2%, the top 1% to 2% of the world. Lots of people are being exploited. Do you think that that's really just a call for more virtue-based business in the world, that would, start to see more equality in that sense?
Yeah, so the data shows, in a way, you've asked me an opinion, but before I express my opinion about the virtue, I want to go to the facts. And so there is a fair amount of debate about the level of inequality, and it depends on which measurement you look at. Here's what's undisputed. What's undisputed are the billions of people who have been raised out of subsistence poverty. In other words, they don't know each day whether they're going to have enough to eat. And they have been lifted up out of that. And that happened not because of government relief, not because of foreign aid, not because of handouts. It happened because of the kinds of businesses that Magatte is talking about that are happening in her, where she is right now. And so that's what's happened over the last 30 years. Now, do the 1% or 2%, and let's just focus on the 1% who have the most economic blessing. Do they owe to their fellow men more virtue? Absolutely. Absolutely. We all ought to understand that whatever we have, and even if we're not the 1%, let me tell you something. Most of the people in the U.S., any of these on this webinar who live in the United States of America, you're already in the top 10% of the globe. Just because of the fact you live here and you have air conditioning and you have a computer you're watching this on, and I mean the luxuries you have compared to the rest of the globe. So let's understand, every one of us on this webinar is in the elite. Every one of us needs to be mindful of that. The fact that we have a disproportionate amount of material blessing compared to the rest of the world. So, and the higher up you are on that, if you're in the top 10%, you need to be aware of it. If you're in the top 1%, you need to be even more aware of it. So certainly, we need more virtue, and in particular in the field of business. But I do find, you've got this thing, the giving pledge, where a lot of really wealthy people said, I'm going to give away half my income. There is a sense that I think is growing among many of the wealthy that, look, we need to share with others. Now, look, I'm not Pollyannish about this. We need a lot more recognition of the poverty that's out there. We need a lot more virtue in business. But I do think this. We at the same time, we can't ignore what the data shows us about what the entrepreneurial spirit has done in lifting people out of poverty.
Well, wouldn't that be, I mean, it sounds like you're talking about a difference between giving someone a handout and giving someone a job.
Well, and there's almost no question that the job, not only does it help them more materially, but it gets more to their human dignity. I mean, that's part of what, I think every action we take, we should be asking ourselves, every interaction we have throughout the day, but certainly as we look at what we're doing with our lives, we should be asking ourselves, is what I'm doing adding to the dignity of that other person on the other side of this transaction? And I'll tell you what else we ought to be asking, is what I'm doing adding to my own human dignity? In other words, this is one way to consider growing in virtue, whether you're a student in business, in law, in medicine, whatever. Do I feel like what I'm doing is drawing me closer to God, and do I feel like what I'm doing is making me more of a human being? Or is what I'm doing making me more of an animal? And we see it. Let's face it, business, you see some animal behavior where people just act in a selfish way as if there's no transcendence in the world. So we need that cognizance of the fact that is each transaction we're entering into enhancing the human dignity of the other person and enhancing our own. And many times when we just give away money, we have to be careful that we're not taking the easy way out. Write a check and then my conscience is clear. And I think at times that's what some of our government programs have been. We send our taxes away and we say, hey, government, you take care of the poor and the sick and those who are suffering. And I'm done with it now because I paid my taxes.
Yeah. Magatte, how do you see, what sort of impact have you seen, and what sort of impact can virtue-based business have on a society?
Well, to me, virtue-based is, when I apply that to my own self every day, for whatever decision I have to make in my business, I am always very scrupulously thinking about how does it affect my stakeholders. And I use the word stakeholders rather than shareholders, right? And shareholders being one of the stakeholders. It's always important for me to think about what is my business decision about to do for my customers, for my employees, for the environment in which my business is evolving, for the environment itself, meaning Mother Nature, my shareholders, as well as my suppliers. So it's very important that there's a win-win-win-win-win relationship between all of those before any decision of mine is made. And I think that even there too, going back to Frank's point, even there the data shows that businesses that are virtuous in their field actually perform better than their counterparts that are not virtuous based businesses, right? The Container Store being one of them, Whole Foods Market being one of them, and we have a lot of companies like that. And it is very interesting to note that most of those companies still have one of the founders at the helm. So again, going back to the fact that a lot of these companies get started by people who are not just saying, "Oh, I want to go make money," but it's people who woke up some night and are just like, "This is a problem, and I'm going to go do what I can to solve it." So that's one thing. But there's one thing more that I wanted to add to the whole thing with handout part that we were talking about just earlier. I think when I speak, for me, I think virtue businesses is very important for me. I don't see how I personally could not perform my business in any other way. That's just the person I happen to be. People can judge me for it. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, all I care about is being able to look at myself in the mirror, because I'm the one who lives with myself. And later, when it's time to respond, to get back to my creator and face him, I like to think that, I'm going to be able to, I will have good things to say. But when it comes down to the handout, I think oftentimes people complain about the poverty around us, and people wonder, but how can we help, and how can we make sure that there's not this huge gap between the life of privilege that I live, that I get to enjoy here in the U.S., and the life of poverty that others have to live through in other parts of the world, while at the same time sending their children or supporting colleges that have some of the most anti-business people on their faculties, right? So this is unbelievable to me, the time in which we are living in the United States right now. And I am a huge fan of the United States. And it is really worrying me that people are not understanding the importance of business and jobs for that, and entrepreneurship for value creation. And understand, it's just even mind-blowing that, when I go to the UN and I give a talk, at the UN, they're talking about the Millennium Development Goals, 17 goals, and if you take each one of those goals, each one of them has a direct relationship, if not very close relationship, to poverty. Yet, all the people who work on those goals, when they have a big powwow conference, there's almost no one representing the private sector there, right? So if we sat here and we said that poverty will be solved by job creation and value and entrepreneurial value creation, yet the people who supposedly work on it do not recognize the private sector or the role of business, then we have a serious problem. So I oftentimes hear people who complain about poverty. "Oh, Africa is so poor, what can we do? What can we do? We want to help. And in the same sentence, being completely anti-business. And so when Frank was talking also about people giving their tax dollars away and looking the other way, well, let me walk you through where your tax dollars show up, because right now I'm going through it here too. So basically your tax dollars goes to organization. Like just recently, I was told about this one person working at UNICEF who makes $12,000 a month. $12,000 a month in a country where you have the average income is $600, right? And they're paying most people there outrageous amounts of money. $3,000 a month, $4,000 a month, for some of the lower paid people. What are you doing there? You're basically messing up the entire ecosystem. Meaning then you have a business person like me who has to compete in the real world with my prices, and I can't get an assistant for anything less than $3,000. All the prices are jacked up, messed up. Everything is messed up. The business is basically turned upside down because I am now competing with NGOs who, by the way, are getting your tax dollars, right? Turning around, paying people $12,000 a month, right? And so I, as a business person, have to compete with that. So imagine all of my business, my cost of goods are completely inflated. And these are people who supposedly came here to help with the poverty. They're coming here to help people, children who are living in poverty. Why do you think these children are living in poverty? Because probably their parents don't have any job. And so for me, I think it's really important that we start to really think about this. And for people to not just stop at these poor people, everything is so bad, let me go and give some money. We are seeing this right now. This is a huge problem. And then I have some folks who could be great, and they're telling you, well, why would I come work for you when I could just be working for this NGO is a really great place to hide out. Literally, that's what people tell you. So you're also really messing up with work ethics.
Anna.
And yeah.
No, go ahead, Magatte. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine, Frank. But in any case, I really think it's important to think about that. And the way that people in America can be part of a solution, all the way from America, yes. Let's start looking at our position towards business. And it is not, and you should not be thinking, oh, well, 2 or 3 people are going to be bad people, so we're going to have to put all these barriers up to block them. Well, knowing that the only people you will be blocking when you do that is the people at the bottom, the ones that need the low barriers of entry to be part of the game. So I will stop right there. I feel like now I'm going all over the place. I don't want to lose I don't want to confuse our listeners. But as you can, I think everybody can hear it in my voice. There's a lot of frustration with what's going on. I get it that everybody wants to help. But I think we also have to engage our minds in this strong desire of ours to want to help.
Magatte, do you think, and if you don't mind me asking her a question, it seems to me there's almost and I'd like your opinion on this because you're closer to it, there's almost kind of an implicit racism involved in that there's this feeling like, okay, entrepreneurialism, it may work with Silicon Valley, and it may work in Boston, and it may work in Dallas, and that may be fine. But these other folks, we can't rely on their entrepreneurial ability or inspiration. We need to go manage it for them. And I think there's a bias that's implicit there that, well, first of all, practically speaking, it's very, very harmful, but it's also wrong.
Absolutely. So to answer your question, absolutely. Patronizing. There is a lot of patronizing, a lot of racism. Let me give you 2 examples. A few years ago, my husband was giving an interview to Dwyer Gunn. She was back then the econ editor of Freakonomics, the economics blog of the New York Times. And so they were doing this interview, and I could hear how my husband was talking to her about how entrepreneurial value creation was one of the best way out of poverty for most people in the developing world. And I could hear her. I almost created an accident because I was the one driving, but I was so outraged by what I heard. I heard her concede, well, I could see that working for India and for China, but I can't really see that working for Africa. Because for her, we could be nothing better than living in subsistence farming and being, like this subsistence is poor people. And this was coming from a good heart. Dwyer Gunn is by no means, I would never look at her and call her a racist person. This is a PhD in economic development out of Columbia University, econ editor of the Freakonomics. If people like that think this way, when do you ever think that they will be advocating for the right changes to come in place for us to thrive? The fact that most people, again, don't understand that most poor countries rank the worst on the Doing Business Index ranking of the World Bank, that it is harder to do business anywhere in sub-Saharan Africa than it is in most Scandinavian countries, than anywhere actually in Scandinavia. That it is harder to do business anywhere in most African countries, sub-Saharan African countries, than it is in socialist countries like Bolivia and Nicaragua, places like that. And we have people like Jeffrey Sachs who, don't even get me started on that one, but yes, we have this patronizing that's going on all over the place. But Mohammed Yunus himself has said it, the Nobel Prize in Economics, he said it. At the end of the day, the only reason why people are poor in these poor countries is not because we're more stupid than anyone else. It's just because we don't get to enjoy the same potting soil that is so thriving for entrepreneurship. That's the only thing. So if people in the West are really so inclined to see poverty, to see the end of poverty in their lifetime, maybe they need to start looking really seriously at what is it that they can do to promote the right ecosystem in countries like that. And they cannot come back and tell me, oh, there's nothing that I can do. Yes, you can do something. Actually, you're doing something right now. You're giving your tax dollars that's coming and messing with my place. So If
Wow.
you want to give your tax dollars, I will ask you to go ahead and make sure that your tax dollars gets really devoted to places that are going to help promote entrepreneurship. If you're going to want to be involved in education and you want your money to go into education and to donate to education, as a matter of fact, I will leave all of my money to education, me talking to you. So if you want to donate to education, be very careful what type of education you want to donate to. I am very involved myself into entrepreneurial education because we need as many more entrepreneurs as we can to lift the world up. And if you're going to want to work, if you still want to have a nonprofit, maybe look at a nonprofit like the Aquila Foundation up in Rwanda, where basically they're training a bunch of people in the hospitality, industry, because Rwanda is coming up as a great country to visit for tourism, yet we don't have enough people well trained in the hospitality business. So that nonprofit is turning out many people who now can work in the hospitality industry, and they have a 100 placement rate every single day. So I would encourage people to start looking at things from that standpoint. What can I do to help people become productive and live productive lives? Whether you want to do it on a nonprofit or for-profit way, it's your choice, it's your decision. But please, I beg you to really, really think and follow your dollar and follow the consequences of your dollars.
Well, I'm really glad that you're bringing this up, because I think that this is what we should focus on for the last 10-ish minutes that we have here, which is, presumably the folks who are tuning into this webinar tonight are interested in being entrepreneurs, are interested in being successful in business, but also want to be part of this virtue-based business. So with that in mind, Frank, what advice would you first give to someone? You're in venture capitalism. So what advice do you have for somebody who wants to start a successful business in this way?
Well, I think the first thing to do is to, this is actually true for solving any problem. You look at your own capabilities. I guess Socrates said the beginning of wisdom is to know thyself. So you got to know what your own abilities are as you go out there and start a business. But then you start looking for where the greatest need is. You don't need to go find a real competitive enterprise. In fact, I encourage entrepreneurs to find some place that's not that competitive. Why go beat your head against 10 other people providing the same service or product? Go find something that's needed by people that's not being provided, and that takes a kind of curiosity for entrepreneurs that I think is critical. But that curiosity is enhanced. It's actually enhanced if you actually care about the other person. If you actually care about the other person, you're more likely to figure out what's going to help them. If you can help someone else, they're willing to pay you. Whether it's giving them a mobile phone or giving them skin products in Africa, if you really care for them, you are more likely to be cognizant and aware of what they need and how you can fulfill that need. And I don't want to reduce this to a simple formula, but it's not that complex. You get money when you create wealth, and you create wealth when you enhance the well-being of others. And the way you do that is to be mindful of what would increase their well-being. And the way you're mindful is to be curious about it and to actually care for them. Now, has there been anybody who's ever built a business who didn't care about other people? Sure, there have been. But I'm telling you, if you want to know one of the secrets to finding out how to help other people and create value for them, caring about them really helps. And there's nothing better for developing your own virtue than learning how to think about others first. I just think it's like a root, fundamental basis of developing virtue in ourselves. One of the key ways you learn virtue is to start thinking about someone else first. So if you can adopt that mindset, you're actually, it's not a guarantee that you're going to build a multi-million-dollar business, but if you can develop that mindset, you are more likely to develop a multi-million-dollar business because you start attuning yourself to what the other person needs. And if you can satisfy that need, you have a chance that they'll part with their money.
Well, with that in mind, Frank, when a wannabe entrepreneur comes and sits themselves in front of you looking for an investment on your part, what are you looking for from them?
I'm trying to figure out if they already have an idea. Let's say they're pitching a business plan to me. I'm trying to figure out, look, is there a real need for this, and can you truly provide it? And candidly, sometimes there's deficiencies on both sides of that. Either they've thought of some idea that I'm not really sure it brings that much value to people, or they have some idea, but they can't execute it. And so, but if those two things can come together, if it looks like they're actually going to solve a need that others have, and they have the ability to execute it, well, that's the kind of business I want to fund.
Magatte, what do you think about all of this? What is the first advice that you would have for a budding entrepreneur?
I cannot re-emphasize enough what Frank already said when he talked about this importance of really caring for others, because at the end of the day you have to live and breathe your customer, right? And in my mind, that's what, for me, as you can, I'm a very passionate person, and I can't do anything that I'm not passionate about. And so I think you really have to try and really follow what it is that really you're in love with, you have passion for, and the one problem or the problems that really keep you up at night. To me, that's usually a really good path to follow, the issue that keeps you up at night and that you're going to try to find a solution for. I think also I would encourage as many people as possible to work in startups, to work around entrepreneurs. The world of big corporation, governments, and NGOs is completely different from the world of startups. So it's one of the best ways you can really learn about the startup world is by being inside of it. And if you want to be an entrepreneur, it's better to work at a poorly paid job in a startup for an equity stake than to take a more highly paid job in a corporation, right? So whether your equity stake is ever worth anything or not, that's not really the point. You will learn a lot about how a startup functions. And also, I think really never hesitating. I think people say, this sounds very cliche, it's okay to think big, but it's even more important to start small. And that's something that I'm really trying to teach people here in Senegal, because oftentimes they think that to start a business you have to have all of this money and all of that. I'm not saying you don't have to have some startup money, right? But I think it's important to remind folks about the importance of bootstrapping and just get started. Just get started and keep showing up and try to figure it out. That's what I would tell most people. That's what I practice.
No, and
Go ahead, Frank.
I just want to, Magatte had two great pieces of advice I want to make sure everybody hears. That idea of being around other entrepreneurs, starting at, getting around startups, okay? It's crucial. I mean, Warren Buffett said his best key to whether somebody's going to make a lot of money one day is at what age did they start trying to make money? In other words, trying to figure out how to provide something for others. Truett Cathy started Chick-fil-A, right? As Magatte said, the other point she made about starting small, right? He would collect Coke bottles, right, and go turn them in for the deposit. Or he'd go to people and say, I'll give you, 2 cents for that Coke bottle, and he knew he could take it back to the grocery store and get a deposit return of a nickel, right? And he started doing that when he was a child. This business of sort of thinking, how can I cobble something together? And so working with startups, I think it's a great piece of advice, and starting small like that, because if you're going to be entrepreneurs, you got to think a little unconventional. This is why governments don't like entrepreneurs. Okay, they want to control things. And entrepreneurs think unconventional. And one other thing, since the crowd we're on, one way to be unconventional these days and to get in an unconventional entrepreneurial mindset is to actively practice your faith. You know what? It's like a daily thing that is different from the rest of the way the world is. And the more you get used to being different than what the world tells you got to do, and you live according to what God's calling you to do. So I just want to encourage everybody. This may sound crazy, but I think practicing your faith on a daily basis helps you to get out of that groove of conventionality. And I actually think it helps you be a better entrepreneur.
It's funny you would say that, Frank, because I usually would like to say that in my mind, I view entrepreneurship as one of the best ways, actually, I like to say, of practicing my freedom. And I think you can take it all the way to my freedom of even faith.
Frank, Claire asks, how can we encourage others to pursue virtuous business? How have you done that?
Were you asking me or Magatte? I couldn't tell.
You, Frank. First, Frank.
Okay,
I'll ask Magatte too.
Sure. Magatte spoke about being a witness earlier. I think we all have to be a witness, and we have to not be afraid of speaking up about these things. So for those who are younger than I am, who are students, who are looking to start out, at some point, it's interesting as we're children and we hear all these things fed into us. At some point, you got to decide you're going to be an adult and stand up for what you really believe in. And so it's very easy when you hear cliches about business or about how to get ahead. I've actually, a very quick plug, I just wrote a book called A Graduate's Guide to Life, 3 Things They Don't Teach You in College That Could Make All the Difference. And part of what I'm getting to people is this idea of, I think we make a mistake when we tell people the key to success is getting ahead. That sounds like it's some competition with other people, okay? And it becomes a grasping sort of dog-eat-dog kind of world. In my world, I'm not interested in getting ahead, and I'm not really interested in competing. In my family, I don't want to compete for my wife's love. I just want an abundance of love. I want an abundance of love from my children, from my grandchildren, from my friends. I want abundance. I don't want to be scrapping over little pieces. And so I think a different way of looking at the world, where we're not looking to get ahead. What we're looking to do is help others prosper, and if we help others prosper, we're going to prosper.
And Magatte, what do you think? What advice, or how would you encourage others to get involved in virtue-based business?
Everything Frank said, for sure, and I absolutely love a piece of, I don't want to be scrapping for, looking for scraps, I believe in abundance, right? And I think also the other thing, I think too many people, especially young people, they start out, and all they think about too often that's money, how am I going to get ahead, and this and that, and I think they forget that one day, as it's with everything, it gets old. And yes, even money does get old. Even success does get old. Fame, all of that crap gets old if it's not backed by something more important, which is what type of legacy. And I know that for young people it may sound like, oh, what he's talking about, legacy. Yeah, what type of legacy do you want to leave behind? And I think it's very important to think about that. And sometimes maybe the big answer doesn't have to be a big answer, and it should be something as simple as, I really truly would like to, and again, it's going to sound cliche, but I want to change the world. Where I've told everybody very early on. For me, if you ask me what motivates me, it's, and I've only found Ralph, Waldo Emerson, who said it very powerfully. He said, and it's something that motivates me, is I want to know that because I have lived, another soul has lived better. That's what motivates me. It's and when people are, I don't even claim, I am not even here. I'm not interested in being happy. And other people are like, well, but that's what makes you happy. Yeah, it's true, but my goal is not to be happy. My goal is that because I have lived, another soul can live better, can breathe better, and it's very key for me. So I would encourage people, if they want to live a life of virtue, and especially also in business, it is to really think about what is it that they would like to have. Even if they were like the biggest, the most, the person with the most money in the world, live in Bill Gates, all the people, and so what? What is it that you think is going to leave your name behind? I don't know. I can remember today that came in history that I am remembering just because they were the richest man in the world at whatever time they lived. I can't think of anyone. The people that I remember are the people who truly made a difference for the rest of us. And so I think you just have to ask yourself and never let it go. What is it that I want to be remembered? You want to be remembered for all the money you made, all the women you slept with, or whatever? Fine, so be it. I'm not going to judge you. But I know that's not the case for me, and it keeps me on track.
Well, we're running out of time now, and we definitely need to get a good pitch in for this good business or this good profit conference with Catholic University's Bush School of Business. And, there are going to be some incredible speakers, including Charles Koch, who I believe is the inspiration for the name of this conference, Cardinal Peter Turkson, who works in the Vatican Office of Justice and Peace, Robert Nardelli, Claire Huang, Dina Dwyer-Owens, who happens to be a monthly regular on my show, the Sunrise Morning Show, talking about a lot of the issues that we've been exploring this evening. And it's a 3-day conference on good profit. Magatte, I understand you're going to be speaking at it. Is that correct? What are you going to be talking about?
Oh, I think we're going to be talking about, what are we going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about I think it's how to practice virtue in businesses, especially in the developing world, I think. So it's going to be a panel of a bunch of, I think, 4 or 5 of us who are coming from the different parts of the world, and we're going to talk about how we practice, the virtue of businesses in our different parts of the world.
Fabulous. And Frank, you've been to this before, right? This conference?
I have. In fact, I believe this will be the 3rd one. I've been to the previous 2, and I will tell you they're fabulous. I mean, the talks you hear are just top notch, but you also get a chance to spend time with other business leaders who are thinking about these kinds of issues. And so I find it immensely rewarding to be there and to be with the other folks who have gathered together. I both learn a lot from the talk, but also benefit from the solidarity with so many of the people who are attending.
Yeah, actually, I had the great opportunity to host a webinar like this with Andreas Widmer not that long ago, and that was one thing that he said was really important in organizing this, is that there is actually time for business people to network with each other.
Yes. And it reminds me, you were asking earlier about how, if we want to encourage virtue-based business and that sort of thing, one of the ways is to get together, to go to a conference like this and to be around somebody like Magatte, okay? Because all of us, if we're trying to do this all on our own, it can get discouraging. And it's important that we feed ourselves with the inspiration that can come from others who are sort of fighting the same fight. I just find that immensely encouraging to be with others who are thinking along the same lines, and all of a sudden you realize, okay, sometimes I feel like I'm all alone, but I'm not all alone, because there are others who are trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And there will be, in addition to all of the speakers, the networking opportunities, there will also be opportunities for prayer and reflection. So it's also kind of a little bit of a retreat too.
Yeah, we'll have Mass each day, and it's a good time to consider your own life and what you're engaged in, and the talks are provocative enough that they I think orient us toward that kind of reflection and growing closer to God.
Certainly, I think I saw that Father Robert Spitzer is going to be the official chaplain of sorts, who I think might be one of the smartest men in the world, so he's not a bad one to rub elbows with either. So again, this is October 4th through the 6th at Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. And as an added perk, if you have been participating in this webinar, you can actually receive $500 off the registration fee, which is a pretty nice deal, if you ask me. You can go to CatholicBusinessConference.com to get more information. Again, that's CatholicBusinessConference.com. Magatte, do you have any final thoughts as to how to encourage folks to perhaps register for this conference?
Yeah, I never overestimate the power of being together. I think it's me personally. I'm looking forward to it. I'm always looking forward to being around like-minded people, and especially around honorable people. And I weigh my word very carefully. The word for me here is honorable people. And I think it's important in life. You can choose, who you surround yourself with. And I've made a deliberate choice to be surrounded by people that I can respect and that respect me. And I think it's important. So whenever you get a chance to go to a place where you have so many folks like that around you, where you don't have to have your guards up or anything like that, you have to take that opportunity. And I just think, especially as a business person, it can only help you move further, faster, and better. So I do look forward to that. I think for folks who still don't know what they want to do or how they want to do it, but they just know that they want to they want to do something along these lines, I think this is the best place actually for folks like that, because I think you will come, and I cannot guarantee it, but I am sure that you will go back with part of the puzzles solved, if not most of it, and especially even finding the people to help you move forward with whatever it is that you are seeking for. And so I find places like this and opportunities like this to be quite powerful in that way. And I also do believe that God works in great ways, actually. And it is great when we are able to come. And I didn't know that they were going to have some mass and some of those events. I think it's even more exciting. So yeah, I think I am personally very excited. Maybe yeah. So I think it's going to be good for those of you out there who are listening and really want to get in but don't know how to get started. Come on over and just come on over, open yourselves up, and see what comes out of it. But yeah, that's those are the people that I'm thinking about mostly. Those people, or those who are struggling right now because they're trying to do the right thing all the time, yet they feel like no one is appreciating them for it. Well, come over and we can all help look into it and re-inspire you to keep going and find better solutions. Yes, and with all of that, all I can say is I'm looking forward to it myself personally. So let me be selfish for a minute here and just say, Frank, I listened to you talking about what it's going to look like. I can't wait.
Fabulous. I want to give you both an opportunity to pitch your own business here. Magatte, where can the participants find out more about what you're doing?
Find out more about what I do on Tiossan.com, Tiossan, but more importantly, they can just go to my website, MagatteWade.com. I think it gives them more information about what I do and why I do it. So that's about it.
And Frank, the very first question that I got in the question panel today was actually, how does a Catholic businessman get an audience with you to see if you're interested in supporting a business idea?
Well, you can. There's actually a way to email into hannacapital.com. But I will tell you, you offered a chance. So if you, I am trying fitfully and inadequately to witness to some of the issues we've talked about. And so my first book, What Your Money Means and How to Use It Well, I would recommend that to everybody on the webinar. And I don't mean that in a self-aggrandizing way, but I've tried to think about these issues of how we ought to think about money. And the recent one that I just wrote that I mentioned to you about the Graduate's Guide to Life, if you type in Amazon, if you go to Amazon or type in Frank Hanna, they'll both pop up. And because I've tried to consult with other Catholic leaders, with other business leaders about some of these issues and put some of that down. So if folks want to learn more about that, I would encourage them to consult each of those folks.
Fabulous. And I'll throw out my own plug for my program, the Sunrise Morning Show, where, this isn't the only issue that we ever talk about, but it's one that certainly interests me and love talking about it on the program. Again, we're on at 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern, and the website for my show is SON, risemorningshow.com. and you can listen on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network as well. So if you want to tune in at 6 a.m. tomorrow, you can listen to the program, and I hope you enjoy it. You two have been absolutely inspirational tonight. It has been a real joy and honor to talk to the both of you, and thank you so much for the work that you do.
Thanks, Hannah. You've been very kind, and I appreciate your leadership here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Magatte, get some sleep. Oh no, I think we lost her. Well, in any event, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for participating in this webinar this evening. And again, to find out more information and to register, you get $500 off the registration fee just by participating in this webinar tonight. Go to CatholicBusinessConference.com, CatholicBusinessConference.com. Again, it's taking place at Catholic University of America from October 4th through the 6th. Frank, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to end with just a glory be real quick. Is that all right with you?
Absolutely.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Good night, everyone. God bless you. Take care.